Hello everybody, in this podcast I'm going to share with you some valuable tips on copywriting which are derived from my own experience in mastering the skill of copywriting and making tons of money by offering this service to my clients online. The tips that I'll be disclosing today have not only helped me in preparing effective sales copies but also in creating blog posts that have been shared thousands of times. Besides that, I have also written several sales letters that converted so well for my clients that they offered me long-term contracts based on the results that they got from them. Hi, my pen name is Lily, and if you're looking for more traffic, leads, sales, and social shares on your website, landing page, or any other point of sale online, make sure that you listen to this podcast till the end and also subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you don't miss out on the future content that I'll be putting out here as well. So let's get started. Here's the truth about copywriting. Despite what you might have heard, you do not need years of experience or training to learn how to do copywriting. I actually started my career in copywriting as a freelance writer. Then one day, out of the blue, one of my clients asked me, "Do you by any chance write sales letters?" Now, at this point, I had never actually written a sales letter in my life. But I wanted to give it a try, so I told the client the same. And now that I was hired for the project, I had to write a sales letter fast. According to the freelance contract, I had about just a week to write the sales letter from scratch. So what I did was I researched as much as I could about copywriting, and because I was in a rush, I mainly focused on the key principles that I saw again and again. And it worked. My client told me that my sales letter outperformed to the current sales letter that they had been using for months. And since that day, I have written dozens of sales letters, newsletters, and articles for various online clients across the globe. So over that time, I have actually discovered what most copywriters don't want you to know. And that is that copywriting is actually really easy. Once you know what it is, what you need to do, and how you need to do it, it really gets easy. And that's exactly what I'm here to share with you today. So without further ado, let's dive into copywriting tip number 1, and that is use Reddit threads. Let me break it out to you that Reddit is actually a copywriting gold mine. To use it, head over to a subreddit where you feel like your customers usually hang out. Then take a look at threads that have lots of comments. For example, let's say that you just launched a new keto diet bar. So you'll head over to keto and paleo subreddits and search for bars. Then pay attention to the exact words and phrases that people use to describe what they like and what they don't like about the bars that they have tried so far. Moving on to our second copywriting tip, use short sentences. Now here's a good rule of thumb that applies to pretty much everything that you write. Short sentences equal better copy. And there's data to back this up actually. A study conducted by the American Press Institute found that short sentences were 711% easier to read and understand, which is why if you want to be a proficient copywriter, always automate sentences to be as short as possible. Why? Because they're easier to read and understand. That's just how simple it is. Okay, now the next tip is a bit slippery. So here's the deal. Let's say you have the best copy in the world, but if people stop reading the page after the first sentence, your piece is actually going to fail. That's why one of the main goals of your copy is to keep people reading. So look at it this way. The purpose of your first sentence should be to get the reader to want to read the second sentence. So now the question is, how do you get somebody to keep reading your blog post, email, or sales letter? Your piece must have a slippery side. And what do I mean by that? You see, a slippery side is where you add something to your page that's specifically designed to keep people reading. For example, you can tell a little story in the beginning of your sales letter, but leave the ending for the end. Or you can refer to something that's coming up later in your blog post. Okay, let's move on to copywriting tip number 4, and that is, make sure you have super specific headlines. You see, you've probably heard this before that 80% of people read the headline and only 20% actually read the copy or the article. So frankly speaking, I'm not really sure how accurate that statistic is, but my point is that your headline is really super important. And one of the best ways to make your headlines super effective is to use super specific headlines. Super specific headlines are exactly like the sound. They are headlines that tell your reader exactly what they're going to get if they open up your article to read. And now it's time for technique number 5, which is use FOMO, FOMO. FOMO stands for fear of missing out. FOMO can actually make your copy 10 times more effective. So that means if you are able to make your reader feel if they don't read your piece until the end and do not take the action that you're directly or indirectly asking them to take, then they are going to miss out on something really fascinating. Now that said, FOMO doesn't actually work for every situation. But if you can use FOMO in any particular piece that you're writing or in a sales pitch, then you should definitely use it. And that's because FOMO triggers a very strong reaction within your prospects. It generates an emotion that makes them want to listen closely to what you have to say. Moving on to copywriting tip number 6, and that is write strong leads. Now, everybody actually knows that headlines are important, but nobody really talks about something that, in my experience, is just as important, if not more, than a headline. And what's that? That is actually your lead. Your lead is a section of your page that comes right after your headline. And reason why your lead is so important is because if you lose people at your lead, then you really lose them for good. It's like the chapter will be closed. So what I want to share with you is some strategies on how to write awesome leads. First, use a hook in your first or second sentence. The first sentence of your lead is huge, so make sure that first line really grabs your reader's attention. Next, make your lead about 6 to 8 sentences max. Whether you're writing a blog post, a video script, a sales page, or an email newsletter, you want your lead to be super short. Remember that the goal of your lead is just to grab your reader's attention, and once you have done that, you want to transition into the main section of your content. Finally, use mini stories in your leads. Stories are really a great way to hook your readers right off the bat. But like I just mentioned, the problem with that is that your lead needs to be short and sweet. So you don't really have a lot of room to tell an epic story. Enter mini stories. Mini stories condense a story into 45 lines or so. And now it's time for me to tell you about copywriting technique number 7, and that is do not use big words. Okay? Let's face it, big words do not impress anybody. In fact, they actually just make your content harder to read and understand. So instead of big fancy words, just use words that are easier to read and understand. Okay, so these were my 7 copywriting tips or strategies that if you keep in mind are really going to help you in your copywriting career. If you like this podcast, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel right now. Just click on the subscribe button below this video and I'll be back with you very soon.